Good evening and welcome to our Fall Alumni Town Hall. We're pleased you could join us this evening to hear from both college and student leadership. My name is Colleen Garland and I will be your moderator this evening. I am the Vice President for Advancement here at Kenyon, and for those of you who may not know, we are the division responsible for working to help alumni like you remain connected to Kenyon and inspired to support it and the students who are here today. Tonight, we are excited for you to hear from Jeff Bowman. Jeff is a history professor, former associate provost, then appointed provost in 2020. This semester, Jeff's serving in a very special role as acting president, while Sean Decatur is away for his long-planned and COVID-delayed sabbatical. Sean will return in the new year, and we'll look forward to having him at our May Alumni Town Hall. We're also joined by Celestino Limas, our Vice President for Student Affairs. Celestino joined us just a year ago, and already I think he has met nearly every single member of our student body on his many walks around campus. We're also delighted to be joined by Sheryl Hemkin, a professor of chemistry and associate provost, who this semester is serving as acting provost, as well as Drew Kerkhoff, also associate provost and professor of biology. And finally, our student council president, Ubongabasi Asuquo, who is just days away from turning in her comps, but nevertheless took time out to be with us tonight. As a reminder, you're all on mute to enhance the audio quality. So we will start by providing an overview of the semester and some insight into the latest news on the Hill. We'll also save time for your questions. So please, at any time during the hour, you can use the submit question in the chat feature, where a member of our staff will be helping to track them, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can as the night unfolds. And with that, let's get started by turning things over to our acting president, Jeff.
Thank you, Colleen. It's a pleasure to see you all tonight. As Colleen mentioned, I'm stepping in temporarily in the role of acting president while Sean Decatur's on a sabbatical. I am normally the provost and a professor of history, and I've been at Kenyon for 25 years. And so one of the things that happened this year was I got my Philander Chase Medal, which is a recognition of 25 years of service for faculty members, and it made me realize how quickly the time speeds by. So it's a great pleasure and honor to be in this acting role during Sean's sabbatical. This has been it's been a very fun semester so far. There's been a lot of activity and excitement and buzz. I think a lot of employees and faculty and students are very happy to be doing lots of things in person, all across the board, from things that are kind of formal and grand, like convocation and Founders Day, to much more informal things, just like the regular habits of going to class in groups or group study in the new Chalmers Library. And so it feels like a kind of long-awaited return to something like normalcy, even though we all sort of admit that the normal is a little bit different from what it used to be. And there have been lots of high points in this semester so far in this regard. There's been a lot of energy around things like Family Weekend and Homecoming. Family Weekend had an incredible number of families come to campus and participate in a lot of different activities, athletic contests, the Harvest Festival at the BFEC, a bunch of talks, and there was really a lot of good energy and vibe there. And there has been in other things too. I mentioned Homecoming. Athletic events too. So, I mean, the men's and women's soccer both entered postseason play this week, and the men's were successful in their first game yesterday, which was exciting. They've been great. Sadly, a little bit less great news today for the women's team, but both of them did really extraordinary, and they were very fun to watch. So, so there's just a lot of good excitement and energy around being together in community in a way that's been challenging during the past couple of years, from the more formal things to the less formal things, like a very impressive dog parade that was organized yesterday afternoon on Middle Path that was accompanied by trick-or-treating. And the weather has cooperated a lot with being kind of atmospheric and warm and autumnal. The day started here in Gambier with a kind of dense, thick fog that was kind of magical, and The only regret I have about doing this event at this time of the evening is that you can't see that right outside this window behind me is a truly stunning maple in the most kind of blazing red colors that you can possibly imagine. So it's been an exciting semester so far. Let me say just a couple of things about things that have been going on. I mean, of course, the main thing is we welcomed 535 first-year students and 22 transfer students to the college from 39 states and 20 different countries. So all in, we have about 879 students on campus. It's about the same number that we had last year. This class is really remarkable. It is a record number of applications for admission to the college, 8,635, and a much greater than anticipated yield on those offers of admission to the college. So it's a testament to the really strong enthusiasm that prospective students and their families have for being at Kenyon. I'll also say that the class, the incoming class, the class of 2026, and the transfer students are remarkable in several different ways. They're very high academic profile. The weighted GPA is 3.98, and they do a bunch of different things in terms of enriching the diversity of our population on campus. 24% are domestic students of color and 10% are international. So I'll say a little bit later something else that's kind of exciting about this group in terms of our progress with goals about affordability and access for low-income students, and that's the number of Pell-eligible students made possible by the Kenyon Access Initiative. This is something I'll come back to a little bit later. And then, of course, there are the personal qualities about people who you know, showed a great deal of resilience and creativity during the course of the pandemic and are described by their recommenders and guidance counselors as being intelligent, kind, and creative. So all of that feels really good. There feels like there's very good energy in these incoming students, and it really testifies to the strengths that Kenyon has as people look for a place for undergraduate education. Of course, that's the people. There's also the place. I mean, I'm sure for many alumni, Kenyon's a very special place spatially in terms of the natural environment and in terms of the building, and there's lots to report there. We are nearing the end of work on the West Quad project, which includes 3 large buildings: the Chalmers Library, which opened about a year ago, the Lowell House, which is the home to admissions and the enrollment division, and Odine Hall, which is on the verge of opening and will be as an academic building that will be home to the social sciences, or the humanistic social sciences, including history, political science, sociology, philosophy, and the Center for the Study of American Democracy. And there's a few specialized classrooms there for anthropology. Not long ago, we had an opportunity to do some acknowledgement of some of the donors for that space, and also Rob Odine, the former president of the college, was in town to, to see the building that was named after him, and that was a great pleasure. Rob was the president when I came to Kenyon, and I remember interviewing with him. He was one of the first people I met in Gambier, so it was great to see him and to see him witness the work that had been done on the West Quad as it nears completion. And when we get to the start of the next academic semester in the spring, this will have not just faculty offices, but also classrooms that'll be housed in there. So the next large project that we've started is a set of housing projects. I mean, one of them is a renovation of Bexley, which will be complete at the start of the next academic year, and will house 40 students, and it'll be really good to have this wonderful historic building back in fully occupied by students. And we've also started work on 3 new residence halls on the south end of campus, each of which will house 104 students, and they will take a little bit longer. They'll be done into 2024, 2025, and 2026. And as these come online, they'll do a number of different things. They'll improve the overall quality of student housing on campus. They'll diversify the kinds of housing that are available, and they'll also improve or increase the overall capacity. So that's some good news about buildings, and the buildings are one of the things that they'll allow us to do is to pursue work on the strategic plan that we approved about a year and a half ago. One of the parts of that plan involves modestly increasing the student population on campus, and so the housing is an important part of that plan. So there are other parts of that plan that have more to do with the curriculum, and I think that Sheryl and Drew might say a word or two about them, but the housing is one part that helps us reach goals in that area. The last thing I'll say about things that are on the mind of the campus is that it's 2022, and we are, of course, approaching a bicentennial. The college was founded in 1824, and so we are thinking about starting the college's third century and planning for celebrations and acknowledgement of where we've been and where we're going over the course of the 2024 year. There'll be a special Founders Day in the fall of that year, and in the spring of 2024, there'll be a large gala event over reunion weekend for celebrating the bicentennial. So that's just a couple of different things that we're working on hard here, coming back together in community, being together in person, enjoying the experience of being on campus, looking forward to implementing the strategic plan, and also thinking about the bicentennial as we work on these capital projects. And with that, I will hand it back to Colleen.
Thanks so much, Jeff, for that overview. Celestino, we're eager to get you in to share a bit more about the semester from the student life perspective. So welcome, Celestino.
Yeah, mahalo, Colleen. Great to see all of you this evening. It really is a special time to be on campus. I love this time of year, but also I think, as President Bowman indicated, our students are doing a wonderful job just reintroducing themselves to each other after COVID, and as we're getting to use of this new normal. Something that was really neat, just to show you all, this past Monday, we had our first ever From Campus Events sponsored a trick or treat on Middle Path, coinciding with our dog parade. And so I had the privilege of sharing a table with my colleagues in advancement. So instead of giving out candy, we wanted to give out t-shirts. So I decided to show my age and make an AC/DC themed Kenyon t-shirt. And it was so fun to give away 100 of these. They went like that in less than 10 minutes. And it was just a wonderful way for the campus to come together and just be with each other again. I think the new normal is sort of becoming us quite well. So of course, in addition to that, students have really, I think, done a wonderful job getting used to how we're developing patterns of integrations on campus. Classes are going very well. I think the weather has been a wonderful way for us to tee up things. As President Bowman indicated, fall sports are really, I think, been a force to be reckoned with, and we're excited about winter coming into it. In addition to those fun social things, I really just want to take 2 seconds and talk about some really great initiatives that are directly connected to our strategic plan that we're very excited about. One of them is our new partnership with JED Campus. So JED Campus is something that dates back to 2019, when President Decatur and Senior Director of Wellness, Chris Smith, and others really saw an opportunity to take Kenyon's commitment to mental health to the next level. JED Campus has partnered with over 400 different colleges and universities as member institutions who have comprehensive institutional commitments to making mental health a proactive part of their campus wellness strategies. So the JED Campus approach, and what makes it unique, is really rooted in its 4-year assessment and implementation approach to amplify what already exists for colleges, but then also root out existing and future efforts in best practices nationally and globally that positively impact campus climate and campus culture, rather than simply treating mental health issues that arise. So we're pretty excited about this because it's one more way Kenyon is distinguishing itself as a very much so a liberal arts institution committed to comprehensive wellness. We're doing it from the physical side, we're doing it from the mental health side, the spiritual side, and I think there's a lot of other things we're going to touch upon as well. I just wanted to make sure that you sort of stayed attuned to exactly those JED Campus initiatives. We're really excited to have wellness be a big part of our strategic plan efforts. In addition to that, I really want to take 2 seconds and just congratulate our student council, because President Ubongabasi Asuquo and her administration have really distinguished themselves as true champions for the student voice on campus. I want to give you one quick example about this. Many of you have read about our brand new parking garage in the West Quad that opened up here in August. And of course, it's a wonderful addition for us here on campus, but it is something that is designed for employees and visitors. It is not something that was originally designed for student use. So one of the things I think that Ubong was very instrumental with, her administration reached out to the college very much so in August, wanting to explore what would the circumstances need to be in order for students to actually use that space. So we embarked on this partnership where we would use empirical evidence to monitor how much were students being able to utilize the current parking rules on campus, which at the time prohibited their use of using the garage so that employees could utilize that space. And what was really magical is after 34 days of watching that space open up from 20 August forward, we discovered that campus safety had only written 6 tickets for student using in the parking garage. We also saw that there was a lot of capacity that employees were not using. So we announced very recently that we would be actually allowing students to utilize that West Quad parking garage on the evenings. And I think it was very much so greeted with much celebration, because I think students understood there is a partnership that we need to have so that we can move the needle on the student experience. But more importantly, we don't want one experience to disenfranchise those of others. So I really can't say enough about her leadership and how I think Student Council is poised to make some significant inroads. As I talked about JED Campus earlier, they were also very instrumental in having us keep our eye on the ball when it comes to mental health on campus. So we were excited to announce to students just yesterday, to all students on campus, that we are championing a new process for us here called My SSP. This is going to be something that will actually replace our protocol system. And I think it provides after hours, but also ongoing resources for students that are in times of crisis that need some support. What's great about My SSP when we ask it to students are 3 things. 1, it's directly reflective of our college's strategic plan for the 3rd century about how wellness is part of what we're doing. We want to actually walk the talk with this, and My SSP really helps us with that. 2, instead of being something asynchronous, which is what we used in the past, My SSP is in real time. So 24/7, if a student needs support, especially after hours, they can be connected right there with somebody who can, in emergency situations, get them the help they need. But also if it's not a crisis and they just needs that support, we can provide that after hours. And it's a very robust system that takes place both within and outside of an app for students to use. But also the 3rd reason we're so excited about it, it is now going from our previous levels of support that were just available in English. Now they're going to be available through My SSP in 5 languages: Mandarin, Cantonese, Spanish, French, and English. So it really recognizes the fact that we are a global student body. And I think more importantly, Student Council's involvement, sort of wanting to make certain that we are attentive to mental health needs of our students, is really something quite magical. I think it speaks volumes to their ability to advocate for their peers. It has been really nice also to see some other things happen on campus that really testament to exactly why Kenyon is such a special place. So we are now going to open up, we announced to students a little bit ago, that the old location of Chilitos, that is just on the other side of far behind the bookstore and 112 and 114 Gaskin, they unfortunately had to depart this summer. But of course, we wish Jose well. I think he has some great restaurants in Mount Vernon we continue to encourage our students to frequent. But we had an open footprint down there. So AVI stepped up, and they are going to open here this year Pierce Express. This is going to be a second dining location for our students to be able to use. And more importantly, it is baked into the meal plan. Students will not pay 1 dime when they go to Pierce Express. They can go to Pierce, and on their way back to the first year quad or to the NCAs or new apps, they simply go into Pierce Express, they show their K card, and they get whatever they want. It's really a wonderful thing that AVI is partnering with us on, and we're so excited to see it open up here pretty soon. In addition to that, because our students have been championing a number of things, they had an idea about a year ago to open a campus bar run by students for students. So we were very excited to launch this as a pilot program in a pop-up location, whether it be Gun Commons patio, Old Cape patio, the old tennis courts. But when AVI took over Pierce Express, they actually asked us, would you like the students to run the bar inside Pierce Express? And we were, of course, thrilled with this. So Delaney Gallagher, class of 23, Rocco Denese, class of 23, James Loveland, class of 22, a number of other students were so instrumental with this. But what's great about this is AVI is turning over the books to those students in this event. So not only will they staff and manage it, they can learn in real time the economics of running a bar in partnership with AVI. This speaks to sort of the way in which students, I think, are really partnering with the opportunities in front of them to make their experience really great. And the last thing I'll talk about really quick is two things actually. Village Market. Village Market has undergone a complete rebirth, and we are so thrilled about Betsy and Nick Jones, the new owners. So they took over 15 July, and more importantly, they have injected a huge amount of enthusiasm into that. We have over 20 students working in the Village Market. More importantly, they are open till 9 p.m. Sunday through Wednesday, and then Thursday through Saturday, they are open till midnight. And this provides so many opportunities for not just students, but employees to have access to a really functioning, high quality bodega right here on campus for our students. In addition, they are now offering pizza as well. So our students are very excited about this. And then the last thing I promise I'll mention, Colleen, is the new thing called the Kenyon Source. We have been very attentive ever since I showed up here. I was asking a lot of questions to not just our students, but also our colleagues about break housing. Students that are here over Thanksgiving, winter, and spring break in the past have received a small stipend to procure groceries and cook on their own. This was a bit troublesome for many students. Not everyone has a vehicle, and more importantly, that amount cannot maybe stretch as much as we wanted it to. The long-term solution would be that we would actually have AVI stay open, maybe as a skeleton crew over breaks. But this, of course, was tough because they were having their own staffing issues related to labor during the pandemic. So Dean Robin Hart-Ruthenbeck, who's a wonderful colleague of mine, Dean for Student Development here at Kenyon, she had this brilliant idea where what if we actually took Kroger and made it come to campus? So we gave birth to the Kenyon Source this past August. Here's how the Kenyon Source works. Dean Hart-Ruthenbeck works with students that in the past have received that break stipend, and she partners with them to select what food is available, whether it's fresh produce, sundries, or fresh meat, dairy, things of that nature. It is available right here on campus in Pierce, 3rd floor, for students to use. And if you are approved to have previously received that break stipend, you get access to the source and you pay nothing. You come and go as you please, you get whatever you want. And there's an ongoing assessment process that Dean Hart-Ruthenbeck uses with students to make certain we stock it with not just healthy food, but food that students want. There's a second part of the Kenyon Source that deals with non-food items. So right now, of course, we are dealing with cold weather coming upon us. So for example, just last week, we actually had an open drive for any students that needed cold weather gear, whether it was boots, coats, things of that nature. They can come to the source to also get non-food items completely gratis. This is something we're so excited about because we want to be comprehensive with the way in which we make the student experience really positive here. So we're really excited to begin this year, Colleen.
Thank you, Celestino. Clearly, there are a lot of new and creative ways we're trying to understand and meet the needs of our students. I appreciate you taking the time to share those. For our audience, I will say we are seeing your questions in the chat. Thank you. Please just go into the chat function to submit question here. And as our program unfolds, we'll get to as many of those as we can. But for now, I'd like to stay in the student realm and reintroduce you to Ubongabasi. You have made advocating for students priority during your time as president of Student Council. And I'd love to ask you to tell us all a little bit more about yourself and why you chose to get involved in this way. Ubong.
Thanks so much, Colleen. Hi, everyone. My name is Ubongabasi. I am a student here at Kenyon, biology major, anthropology minor on the pre-health track. I know it is a mouthful, but that is what I do. On campus, outside of Student Council, I am involved in several other affinity groups and organizations, including the Black Student Union, Sisterhood, the International Students at Kenyon. Essentially, I'd say like the different levels of like multiculturalism that I do occupy, I try to stay involved in all those circles as well. I work for the Lovely Admissions Office and the Biology Department as a lead prep assistant for our intro bio lab sequence. And I also volunteer at the local Knox County Hospital. And this year, truly, it has been an honor. It continues to be an honor to serve as Student Council President. I do think when I assumed this position, I felt very insufficient because I understood the amount of work that I would have to do. But I have received a lot of support just from the Office of Student Affairs, the division, so including Celestino, Dean Robin, Dean Brian, just people who, when there is an issue, they step up to the opportunity to discuss and to deliberate to see how we can get creative, as Colleen mentioned, with solving these situations. But in general, I'd say this year, Student Council has spent a lot of time thinking of the ways that the student experience goes beyond the classroom. Like I think just across the board as people who attended Kenyon, something that has been celebrated over and over again, is the quality of our professors, the classes that we take, the ways that we are encouraged to think creatively, to write critically, to engage with the world in a way that a way that is kind and a way that is genuine. And I think, but oftentimes it has felt that the student experience outside the classroom has not been to its best ability. And some of that has been reflected in, questions about parking. Parking was such an issue. Parking, access to food over the breaks, access to the health center, access to late night options for dining when peers closes. So in different ways and through different committees on Student Council, we have spent a lot of time saying, what are the gaps that we experience in the Kenyan student experience in general, and how do we fill those gaps? And I think I speak for most of the council when we say that we really recognize that, at Kenyon, not everyone goes through Kenyon in the same way. Some people, come in, have a lot of resources. Some come in, do not have any resources. A lot of people are on like multiple spectrums of different things. So understanding that it is important to realize the individuality of the experience alongside the collective experience, and trying to make sure that students who have not previously felt as though they have been heard or have been represented are having a chance to share those opinions, and getting the support that they need. And Celestino did such a wonderful job highlighting the different projects that have gone on this year. And we have a lot more. Also, we also have fun things happening. I don't think we're constantly trying to solve problems. I should clarify that students are still having fun. One of my favorite things that happened this semester was called the NEF War. We had my Vice President of Student Life, Bijan, who I absolutely adore, was like, Ubong, how about we just get water guns and we play on South Campus? And I said, okay, let's do that. So we pulled multiple students orgs together, and it was just a wonderful time. And it was a chance to actually fundraise for local charities in the Mount Vernon area that have to do with gun violence prevention and a host of other very important courses that they do. So students were very involved with that. We also have seen a lot of excitement around Halloween this weekend. We had a Rocky Horror Picture Show. It was wonderful. I was there front row and center. And then tonight we're actually going to have late night for Halloween. We're going to have nachos and ice cream. So in general, I think I'm trying to highlight as much as we are doing the difficult work of trying to figure out the complexities of what it means to be a student in this century, and especially a student at Kenyon, and how that experience might be changing over time. We're also trying our best to ensure that people are also having a good time while they're here, in general. So I think another thing that I probably should share about is how I came to Kenyon. I think people always ask me Ubong, how did you figure out that Kenyon was a place for you? Which I think is a very fun question. So I attended an international boarding school in South Africa for a couple of years, and my counselor, who I absolutely still adore, her name is Miss Dory. She just retired about 2 months ago, and I tear up every time that we get on the phone together. And I remember going to her during my senior year, just thinking about what kind of schools I wanted to apply to. And essentially she told me to kind of describe the kind of institution I was looking for. She said, no, but what do you hope to get out of college? Which I think is a very good question to consider. And I told her I wanted to go to a place that people were intellectually engaged, but they were not obnoxious about being intellectually engaged. And Missouri looked at me for maybe 2 seconds. She's like, you should go to Kenyon. And she was very enthusiastic about it. And I said, Miss Dory, where is Kenyon? Who is Kenyon? I had never heard of Kenyon before at the time. Just because I think being South African, also being Nigerian, and just not understanding the scope of the United States out of the West, the East Coast and the West Coast, the middle was not existent for me at the time. She said, there are cornfields there, but I think you'll be fine. Go on their website. They're pretty good people. All the conversations I've had with the counselors and the current students have been one of the, like, the kindest people, like the very smart people who are very driven to seeing the world become a better place. So I signed up for an info session. I did an interview. I wasn't able to visit, of course, because it was going to be across international waters. And I think Kenyon has truly lived up to that expectation of being a place that people are genuinely curious and passionate about what they do, even if it's the biggest thing, like, like trying to write a whole new policy paper for a country, or like fermentation, friends, like trying to brew kombucha in your room or something. I think there is such a wide range of passion and experiences that it encourages you as a student to keep doing what you do, because other people are rooting for you and they're also doing the things that they do enjoy as well. And I hope that that also all the alumni, you guys are still doing things that you enjoy, because that's how the world remains a good place. People, fighting for the rights that they believe in, and also inspiring others as they keep fighting for those rights as well. I think it's a thread that we all share across the generations in Kenyon.
Well, beautifully said, Ubon. And I may not know Miss Dory, but I love her too, because she sent you our way. And so she must be very special. Thank you so much. I'd now like to welcome Sheryl Hemkin, our acting provost, to share a few words about academic life on campus. Sheryl?
Sure. Great. Thank you, Colleen. Good evening to everyone. I'm Sheryl Hemkin, and as Colleen said, I'm the acting provost to the end of the semester. I'm also a professor of chemistry. And one thing I can say about bringing these two roles together, it's really helped me recognize how fortunate we are at Kenyon. We really have a dedicated group of students, employees, and alumni, and I'm grateful for those folks every single day. And I have to say, since your group of alumni, I really enjoy seeing former students and hearing about your post-Kenyon adventures. And as Ubong just said, I hope you're living with some passion and joy, because it really is an amazing place, an amazing world to be in. I'd like to take some time right now, though, to share with you a couple of things about campus, the academic side of campus. We've almost completed 10 of our 14 weeks of class. And based on my conversations with faculty and students, courses are going well, and people are really excited to be back into the classroom. There's a lot of enthusiasm and joy about that. I was speaking with Ben Vicellio, one of our drama faculty, not too long ago, and he recently was saying how last year, even at this time, people were very hesitant about doing the performance components of his drama classes. People were hesitant to get too close to each other, to do too much, and everything was a bit stifled. And this year, people are really embracing, this opportunity, and so he really feels like there's been a big change for the positive in that way. I'd also like to give you a couple interesting notes about hiring season. We're entering our faculty hiring season right now, and we'll be hiring 10 tenure track faculty, including 2 new tenure track lines. This is pretty exciting. To me, this is pretty exciting, because adding faculty lines does not come without significant thought and consideration. A lot of that is because of the longevity of a faculty career and the concomitant adjustments to the curriculum that's made when you have someone you're expecting to be with us for 30 or 50 years. So this is, to me, a really exceptional opportunity. And in addition, looking at the landscape of higher education, there's not a lot of schools out there that are able to expand their faculty at this moment. So to me, that really adds to this time. And thinking about these new faculty, we expect them to arrive. As I said, we're going to be hiring 10. We'll expect them to arrive in the next academic year. And based on the information I've seen of the searches that have already started out, Kenyon continues to hire really, or continues to attract really high quality candidates. I've seen a lot of substantial teaching experience and research, extensive research backgrounds. So as I look forward to meeting up with these people in the next few weeks and months, if the past is any sign of the future, I expect we'll be able to hire really another good crop of excellent new faculty. And speaking of those guys, I just thought I'd say a couple places where you'll probably hear about some new faculty. One of the places is environmental studies major. It's one of our newer majors that some of you may have started, some of you may have been present as environmental studies started up, others may not have. We're looking for a specialist in agricultural systems, like sustainable food systems or agroecology. And with this, this major, I mean, in just the past few years, we've seen it really grow and find an intense number of committed faculty and students. We graduated 20 majors and 20 concentrators last year, so it's really been on the move. I've also recently had a couple first-year advisees that declared EMBS majors, and in part that was due to the vibrancy of this program and its roots in both science and policy. As I think about that, I think about a lot about how environmental systems are very complex. You can't just, it's hard to work with just one small piece of an environmental system. You really need to have some understanding of both the science and policy. And so Drew's going to talk a little bit about our carbon neutrality program, but I feel like that's going to be an amazing pairing for the ENVS students to really see these complexities in action, as well as start to understand the partnerships we need to be able to address situations like this. And switching gears a little bit towards another place where you might hear about new faculty, and that's going to be in the new major, the new computation major. You may have heard at the end of the last year, the faculty voted to add a major in computation, and this year will start will be the start of that process. We expect the first majors in computation to come from classes that will matriculate after this point, but in the next years we'll have a re-envisioning of what is presently known as the scientific computing concentration. And so students at this moment will be able to see those changes. But I'd just like to, since it is a new program coming up, I'd just like to take a couple moments to talk about that and where it came from, how it kind of bubbled to the surface. Over the years, there's really been a lot of growing interest from faculty and students and prospective students regarding a major in computing. Over the past probably 10 to 15 years, the scientific computing concentration, which both Drew and I are a part of, we've undertaken a number of background studies in this area, and so it's really exciting to see this move forward. And as I've said a couple times, we have a concentration in scientific computing, but that name really evokes an idea that only scientists are using computing, and that's just not true either in real life or at Kenyon. In reality, our faculty and student interests in computing span our divisions, from the natural and social sciences all the way to the humanities. And so this new major will try to lean into this interest. We want students to be able to use computational methods to enhance their study, whether that's to actually dive deeper into programming in the more traditional sense, or to build and test models of complex systems like those in the environment, or to push the boundaries of performance and artistic work. So ultimately, we envision that program in computation to be a home where students can learn to use computation to augment their work in a variety of disciplines throughout the college. So that'll be pretty exciting. We can do some modifications in-house. We do have some expertise in-house, but to really build the major, we are in the midst of hiring a founding director. So that's where our hire in computation, or that's what our hire in computation will be. The search is presently underway, and we're looking for a person with expertise, not just in computation, well, expertise in computation, but also a demonstrated interest in leadership and for developing a major that will be home for people of all types, not just with including interests across the disciplines, but also thinking about thinking about the equality issue and bringing people in from a variety of backgrounds. So I guess what I really want to say ultimately is these are really some interesting and exciting times on campus. You guys probably will see the obvious signs of growth and change in the new buildings. But to me, perhaps the most exciting changes that we have are the changes in the classrooms, the new programs that are coming online, the new faculty that we're bringing in, and especially the comments that I'm hearing that people are just more comfortable being in the classroom together, and they're really excited to be there together. Our classrooms are places of collaborative work, and this comfort really goes a long way to putting energy towards engaging with and absorbing the lessons of the day. And so I guess I'll close with saying, for someone in my profession, I just couldn't ask for something more than to be getting back to the place of learning and really thinking about life in that context. So with that, I'll throw it back to you, Colleen.
Thank you, Sheryl. As Sheryl mentioned, the computational studies program is just one of the elements of the Foundations for Kenyon's Third Century, our current strategic plan. We'll post the link in the chat for those who might like to learn a little bit more about how Kenyon continues to evolve and adapt as we approach our bicentennial in 2024. Another one of the priorities that's mentioned in the plan is the care for our environment, including continuing to implement changes to our built environment to meet the goals of carbon neutrality. And we're very fortunate to have Drew Kerkhoff with us tonight. Drew has been instrumental in our efforts around Kenyon's green future. And so allow me to invite Drew to say a few words. Drew.
Thanks so much, Colleen, and welcome everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Like Colleen said, I'm Drew Kerkhoff. I'm one of Kenyon's associate provosts, and I've been a professor of biology and mathematics and statistics here at Kenyon for 18 years now. And so ever since I came to Kenyon, as an ecologist, issues of the environment have been very important to me. And I've been very excited since 2016 when Kenyon committed towards carbon neutrality by 2040, which is an ambitious plan and will take some real doing to get there. But we've really started that process in earnest over the past couple of years. And just recently in this year, we're working on a strategic planning process for how to get to carbon neutrality by 2040. And I think really more importantly, how to really transform Kenyon into a carbon neutral institution, where we're taking the same care with energy and carbon accounting that we take with our selection of students, the development of our curriculum, the hiring of our faculty, and the stewardship of our finances. And so taking that same kind of care in this process means going about it in a systematic way. And we've started with a strategic planning process where partners here at the college, including the Director of Green Initiatives, Dave Heithaus, and our Vice President for Operations and Sustainability, Ian Smith, as well as a bunch of other members of the faculty and staff, have been working together with a consultancy firm called Evergreen Energy to put together a strategic plan for considering all of our options and getting towards carbon neutrality. We're really excited to be embarking on the process. And at this point in the planning process, where we are is the sort of discovery phase has been completed. And so staff at the college and folks from Evergreen have done a comprehensive survey of our energetic infrastructure on campus, which you can imagine with a campus that is nearly 200 years old is highly varied and complicated. And we've also, working with partners at Evergreen, have looked at the carbon sequestration capacity of our natural and agricultural lands surrounding Kenyon, both on the Brown Family Environmental Center as well as some other college-owned lands that are protected by the Philander Chase Conservancy. And so this comprehensive approach that's combining analysis of both our energy systems on campus and the ecological capacity of a surrounding landscape is what makes our approach unique and actually really exciting. The latter component, that ecological component, is not only near and dear to me as someone who likes to get out and hug trees, but it's also really important because some of the emissions that we have, such as for travel for our students coming from 39 states and 20 countries, and students going abroad to have rich experiences and coming to Kenyon from all over the world, emissions related to that we're never going to be able to get rid of. But if we can sequester carbon at similar rates and on our lands, we can offset those emissions in a very material way. And so that's something that's really exciting about our plan and is unique because of Kenyon's position in a rural landscape and as being a good landholder and community member within Knox County. And so we're at the end of this discovery phase, and the next stage in the process is to develop with Evergreen, who has a lot of experience in this area, a sort of comprehensive set of alternatives, both for developing low carbon and carbon neutral infrastructure on campus, as well as improved land management strategies to sort of maximize the carbon sequestration capacity of our lands. In developing the set of alternatives, we'll be working through not just their ecological and energetic impact, but also the economic costs and benefits involved based on a full 30-year life cycle analysis of each sort of option in the scenario. And from there, we can then make decisions about the best way to move our campus towards a real lasting carbon neutrality that, like I said, treats our energetic and carbon accounting, as well as the ecological resilience of our landscape with the same care that we apply to our curriculum, our finances, our students, our faculty, and our staff. And so it's a really exciting time to be embarking on this. It's a real honor for me to be participating in this effort, and I really look forward to sharing some of the results with you as we go forward. So Colleen, I think that's a good summary of it, and I'll pass it back to you.
It is indeed. Thank you, Drew. We're fortunate to have you leading this effort along with so many others, and it's certainly an example of where we're inviting collaboration and creative thinking across many stakeholders. Also included in our long-term planning is an emphasis on inclusive excellence and the need to cultivate a thriving and a diverse community that is reflective of the diversity of our nation and the world. And we know that each student's experience is enriched by daily opportunities to interact with people from backgrounds different from their own, whatever that may be. As part of this effort, we launched the Kenyon Access Initiative in partnership with the Schuler Education Foundation that includes a $25 million match for scholarship funds for talented students from families of limited means. Jeff and then Celestino, may I ask both of you to expand just a bit on what this unique opportunity means for Kenyon and the impact it's having? Jeff, you first.
Sure. Thank you, Colleen. I mean, I said just, and I'll talk just briefly, but I said a few words about the incoming class and some of the ways in which they were enriching our campus with their engagement, their experience, their academic preparation, and also their diversity. And one of the exciting opportunities that we've had has come from the Schuler Foundation. The Schuler Foundation is an organization that is committed to increasing educational opportunities for Pell-eligible students and dreamers. And one particularly exciting component about the Schuler Foundation is that they have a very strong sense that the transformative power of liberal education in a residential environment can really work marvels for these students. And we, of course, know that to be true at Kenyon. And so they select partners who have high successes with retention and success with students who fall into these categories. And so Schuler saw us as a valuable partner in expanding the number of students who are Pell-eligible and Dreamers on our campus, and made an agreement with us, an arrangement whereby they would match dollar for dollar every new dollar we were able to raise for financial aid for high-need students and for Dreamers, up to $25 million. And so this has been very exciting for a number of different reasons. One of them is that this fundraising effort has been remarkably resonant with Kenyon alumni. So when we initially announced or approached this goal, we thought it was very ambitious, and we have been sort of stunned at the rapidity with which Kenyon families and alumni have responded to it. So we are actually very close to meeting the goal of raising $25 million to match the Schuler funding for it. And this has had an immediate effect on the number of Pell-eligible students on campus. The past few years, in most classes, we've had about 9 to 10% of those students, and in the class of 2026, that number is 13%. So it's a significant jump, a significant increase for us, and we're thrilled both by Schuler's vision in terms of thinking about this kind of programming for Kenyon and a handful of other schools like us, and for the support that we've received from Kenyon families and alumni that has already had an effect on our student population. So it's very good news for all kinds of reasons. So
thank you, Jeff. We've certainly been thrilled with the response from both Kenyon alumni and parents. But Celestino, I think our students have been pretty excited about this too. Could you share your perspective there?
Oh, absolutely, Colleen. This has been one of the joys, I think, of this past 12 months, is seeing how much the students have organically and authentically bought into what the Access Initiative means. Just one quick anecdote to drive this home for you all. There's a fantastic member of Ubongabasi Asuquo's administration by the name of Bijan Kagani, class of 23. And so Bijan is quite the person on campus, but more importantly, Bijan is someone who understands what tradition means to a place like Kenyon and how it can connect generations of Kenyon students and alums. So Kenyon, of course, is very much so wanting to understand exactly how the town and gown relationship shape us. And when Bijan was a first-year student, he remembers this tradition from the village market called market dogs, where for 50 cents, you could get a very delicious hot dog with all the trimmings right from the village market for 50 cents. Obviously, through COVID, a lot of things changed. And as new ownership has taken over, they, of course, don't do it how they used to in terms of the 50-cent price. But Bijan saw an opportunity to feed two birds with the same seed. How can you maybe revive this tradition? So for one day, he went to the owners in the village market and said, what if we revived this tradition where you could sell them for 50 cents, really reintroduce a new generation of students to this tradition? And then maybe, what if you were willing, owners of the new village market, Betsy and Nick Jones, to donate some of the profits to the Kenyon Access Initiative? This was the shortest conversation I've ever seen between a student and a local entrepreneur, because immediately they were on top of it. So we're really excited to announce that 29 November, Market Dogs return to downtown Gambier. We're really excited about it. I think it's further testament, Colleen, to how much our students buy into the strategic plan, but also the things that are pillared around it.
Terrific. Such a great example. I don't even eat hot dogs myself, but I will be in line on that day to buy a market dog. So let's shift now our attention to the questions that we have received. And I will say I will cluster them. We have several questions related to mental health. The first one that came in reads this way, and I will just read. I've read with interest and concern the Healthy Minds survey results, comparing student responses to a number of mental health questions and comparing responses from 2019 to 2021. Could you share how Kenyon is responding to ensure that students have necessary access to mental health services on campus? Celestino, since the Cox Health Center reports to you, I think I'll throw that question your way.
Yeah, sure. And it's a fantastic one. I really applaud the effort, because clearly I think it's someone who's in tune with exactly not only what our students are experiencing and I think also expecting, but also I think how the strategic plan maps onto that. So the first thing I want to do is acknowledge the fact that not all colleges complete the Healthy Minds survey. So one of the things that I take great pride in is how much Kenyon is willing to meet the moment, whatever that moment may be. And I think that's very important to acknowledge. So from that, I think one of the great colleagues we have here at Kenyon is a person by the name of Christopher Smith. So he's our Senior Director of Wellness. And I would point to two things, Colleen, that he has done to really sort of address this particular topic in general. One is proactive and one is reactive, because we want to make sure we're comprehensive here. So the first one I'll talk about is proactive. So part of our strategic plan had in the future us creating a new Office of Health Promotion to really shepherd as much as we could proactive student engagement and education related to what it meant to live a wellness lifestyle, but also be aware and educated of some of the things you need to be mindful of so you can protect yourself and protect others. So we did a very much so national search this past spring, and we are thrilled that Holly Levin joined us this past March. Holly was a previous sitting director of wellness at Boise State University, but in Kenyon, she saw an opportunity to have a very deep relationship with what it meant to have a campus based on wellness initiatives. So she has been really hitting the ground running ever since March, very well connected with the student culture and student groups to really make certain that we can address this before things happen. So that is one facet that's related to our commitment here. The second is in terms of reactive when it comes to actually having students being seen at the Cox Center when it comes to counseling. So Christopher did some assessment after this past academic year, and he wanted to address some of the issues related to students being able to get appointments. He transitioned to a different type of care of service model called flex care. And so a few things happened as byproducts of that for this academic year. One, every student, every single counselor has emergency time set aside in their calendar to make sure that we are triaging emergency situations by students. And this has made a world of difference in our ability to provide services to students in that moment when they really need us. But also the flex care model has done a number of other things too for us. As a student engages with the Cox Center to want to get a counseling center appointment, she is actually presented with the way in which when she leaves that first conversation, she is going to get an appointment. One of the things that I think Chris is very concerned about is making sure that appointment is in close proximity to when she seeks it. That actually justifies when we can actually maneuver our schedules to get that student seen. And if Colleen, Jane Doe student still feels like she wants to have that appointment occur sooner than when we can get her in, she can go on our preferred list to make certain that if something opens up earlier, she can be seen. Our current preferred list of students who want to be seen earlier than when their appointment is set for the counseling center is 2. Our current preferred list of students who want to be seen before their psychiatrist appointment is 2. So I think this further shows that we are wanting to make certain that we are compressing the distance as much as possible between student indicating that they need help from the counseling center and when we can deliver it. So we're really excited about that. Of course, we're committed to doing as much as we can, but I think this is a great first step.
Thank you, Celestino. It's such an important issue. I should have mentioned that questioner was Jeremy from the class of 70, no, Jerry, class of 77. Our next question is also submitted from a member of the class of 77, Brad. And Sheryl, I think this one might be for you. So Brad says, thanks so much for all of these inspiring updates. I want to ask, there have been all kinds of national media stories about trends in undergraduate majors. What are the macro level trends in majors that Kenyon students are choosing? Sheryl.
Thanks, Colleen, and thanks for that question. It's actually kind of a great timing because I was looking up some of this information for a meeting last week, and in part wondering much the same thing. I've been wondering as we work through the pandemic if this will, such a major event will start pushing students to or from certain disciplines like biology or pre-health type majors and so forth. To this point, we haven't seen any effects either more recently or really over the last decade or so. English is still a perennial attraction on the campus, which one might expect, although there's a lot of combo English and other majors, so perhaps there's some hidden pieces that we can't quite dissect. But English is perennial attraction, as I said. Economics and political science have traditionally been second and third-ish in our major selections. Psychology perhaps could be one that is a little bit more on the rise. So they are up to about 40 plus majors now. which is a little bit more of a change. And one of them that I thought was kind of interesting is looking at MLL, because we've added a handful of majors or a handful of languages that are perhaps not the traditional selection that you might see in high schools. And so we have a handful of people graduating in Arabic or in Chinese or Japanese and Russian. And so I think, to me, that was kind of one of the interesting pieces that I saw, was people really probably moving away from languages they may have studied in high school. That said, I guess I will say I'm still curious to see the effects of some of these major changes that we've seen in the last couple of years, COVID, the economy, and so forth, and curious to see how students are either driven to or away from disciplines that might relate to these topics. So, but I guess that's about the basics. So perhaps, I'm not sure what the major numbers were back in 1977, but I suspect it was probably a little bit similar, at least with English on the top. So I'll throw that back to you, Colleen.
Terrific. Thank you, Sheryl. And I do want to acknowledge that we're slightly past our hour time limit, but I'd like to try to get one more question in. So thanks to our audience for hanging in with us. This is a very timely question, and Jack asks, after the Supreme Court's hearing on affirmative action in higher education, it appears that affirmative action is in jeopardy. Should it be overruled? How might that decision affect Kenyon's admissions? So Jeff, can I throw that one to you, please?
Sure. So I began by speaking a little bit about our incoming class, and in the context of that, I probably should have also said something about the extraordinary work that our enrollment division has done for the past few years in bringing us these students. And this is in every year and in every case a very difficult and challenging thing to do. And the environment in admissions and enrollment has been dramatically changing for all kinds of other reasons too. The COVID, for example, obliged most schools, including Kenyon, to abandon mandatory testing, and many of them have done this permanently. And this led to a new kind of variable that made it harder to predict the level of engagement that applicants actually had, right? So there are a bunch of variables that always make this enrollment question harder, you know, and people have all sorts of interesting analogies to, like, landing a class is the equivalent of kind of trying to land an airplane on its side on an aircraft carrier in the middle of a storm or something like that. So this just got harder still because it seems like what some of us considered settled law, which was that the consideration of race in a holistic review of applications that considered all kinds of other factors, was permissible in letting people into colleges and making them offers of admission, is definitely in jeopardy. It seems like the questioning suggests that the current Supreme Court is likely to issue a decision that runs counter to what has been considered settled law by many higher ed institutions. So so there will have to be some adjusting there. Now, of course, what adjusting has to be done depends entirely on precisely what they say is permissible in higher ed admissions and what is not. So, for example, I mentioned our success in the Kenyon Access Initiative and the increase in Pell-eligible students. Well, you know, screening for diversity with regard to high levels of need is not a question that's actually on the table in these deliberations, right? So that's not an issue that comes up, but all kinds of other issues do come up. I'll tell you that it is a thing that our enrollment folks are thinking about right now, and they are imagining a number of different scenarios dependent upon what the Supreme Court says and what the decision is, so that we'll be able to respond rapidly and legally and in the spirit of what's important to us, even if we find whatever this decision is to be disappointing and frustrating. So.
Thank you, Jeff. We certainly are tracking it just like every other college and university in the country. And as Jeff says, the silver lining here is that our progress that's being made through the Kenyon Access Initiative will be uninterrupted since it is based on talent and income. And that's where we'll land. So let me say thank you to all of our wonderful speakers tonight, to Jeff, to Drew, to Sheryl, to Celestino, and of course to Ubon for taking time from her evening. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We appreciate very much you taking time out to focus on Kenyon for the last hour. Have a really lovely evening wherever you are. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.